Welcome on into another episode of the All Aussie Rules Football Podcast. This is episode number 8 of 2026, and it's the AFL 2026 season preview. We'll be jumping through just a few things you need to know heading into the new season. We're only less than a week out at time of release of this episode, which is crazy to think how quick preseason's gone. But that's what we're doing today. We're just going to go run through some must-watch games, all my A-tier listed players heading into season 2026, and other than that, there's probably not a lot else we're going to be doing. It's going to be a little bit shorter than most episodes, but it's all systems go next week. We've got a lot of content still to come out before the season starts, so make sure, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe or follow button, depending what platform you're on. And let's jump into just a rundown of, I guess, our pre-season plans and everything you need to know about that side of things. Episode 8 of the podcast of the year, as we said. The other 7 are already up here and on all the platforms that we regularly release them. So go check them out. We did best players in the first episode, list analysis for every club. We did best 23s, tier list and expectations. Predicting every match of 2026. We did season predictions last week. Match sim reviews went out on Monday. This obviously goes out right now on the 27th of February. And then next week, we've got our preseason matches review. That will be out on Monday. There's a lot of good content there, hopefully, that you'll find interesting. And then next Thursday, opening round. We'll be doing a preview of all 5 matches from opening round. We're going to have a lot of content this year. I'm trying to up the game on our previews and reviews of matches. So stick around, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Also, while I've got your attention, go check out the YouTube channel if you're not there already. This podcast does go on the YouTube channel. But we did pre-season previews for every single club. So all 18 of them are officially on the channel as of yesterday. So go check them out. A couple of them have done really well. But yeah, go watch your favourite team. Go watch all the teams, whatever you like. We went through the recent history of the team, the depth chart, the best 23, the ins and outs, and also a little look at the fixture analysis. So that's all in all of those episodes. Go check them out. I worked pretty hard on getting all of them done. So, yeah, if you like them, make sure you hit that like button. Leave comments and all of that sort of stuff as well. But let's jump into this episode of the podcast. As I said, it's probably going to be a bit of a shorter one for a couple reasons. But let's jump into them. And these are all my must-watch games. A bit weirdly set out there. It ended up being more than I'd planned on doing. I think it's slightly over 50 matches that are must watch for one reason or another. And I probably miss. Well, we've got to go back. There we go. Just ignore that you just saw that next screen. Anyway, opening round. I mean, the first game of the season's always a must-watch game. Sydney v Carlton. There's a bit of hype around the Blue Baggers already this season. I've had a good little pre-season hit out or two, so the Carlton fans are pretty up and about right now. Sydney have also had a really good pre-season. A lot expected of them this year, so I think those two are the games to watch. Oh, that is the first game to watch. Those two teams are going to be interesting. Certainly they'll be both wanting to get their seasons off to a good start. So yeah, Sydney Carlton's not a bad way to start the season. Hopefully, should be a good game. The other must-watch game from the weekend of opening round I've got is GWS Hawthorn. Rematch of last year's elimination final, in which Hawthorn dominated big chunks of, but GWS fought their way back into before Hawthorn were too strong late. So a little bit of a rematch there. A little bit of some tensions maybe. GWS wanting to get revenge. Obviously, they are facing some injuries concerns at the moment. There's probably other games from opening round that will be good, but they are my two to watch. Round 1, Sydney-Brisbane. Obviously, rematch of the grand final from a couple seasons ago. these two always play really close games, almost always, other than that grand final, really. Even last year when Sydney didn't have such a great year, the matchups with Brisbane were still really quite competitive and close. So I think both times Brisbane won the first one and Sydney might have won the second one, but they were both pretty close, right to the final siren. So that matchup is always a good one. Collingwood Adelaide, obviously a bit of spice in this matchup late last year. Collingwood probably have the wood over Adelaide over recent years. In Melbourne as well, we'll see how that plays out. But Collingwood Adelaide on a Saturday night, I actually think both of those games are on at the same time. So maybe a little bit of a drop of the ball by the AFL with that fixturing. But yeah, I think both those games should be good on round one. I've skipped round 2 and 3. I'm sure there probably are some okay matchups in there, but we're going right to round 4, which is our Easter weekend matchups. Brisbane Collingwood, traditional Easter Thursday game. The two teams that have combined for the last 3 premierships, going at it. It's usually a pretty decent matchup. Brisbane probably taken the wood over them over the last year or two, even though Collingwood did manage to beat them Easter Thursday last year. And then Adelaide Fremantle. That's going to be a good game, I think. Two teams that have a point to prove and continue improving. We'll see how it shapes up. I think that's going to be a really good one on Easter weekend. And then the traditional Easter Monday game, Hawthorn Geelong. Two teams coming off the prelims, obviously prelim final rematch from last year. These two teams have a lot of history against each other. And could be a little bit of a spicy matchup that might point towards which team is going to be the better one of the two for the year, because both teams go into the season with at least top 4 aspirations. We then jump into round 5, which is our gather round, and really most of the games that weekend should be at least somewhat decent to watch. But we kick off with our must-watch games with Collingwood Fremantle. They have had a lot of close matchups over the last couple of years. Fremantle came from the heavens, kicked the last 4 or 5 goals to beat Collingwood late last year in Melbourne. They also had a draw back in 2024. There's been quite a few close matchups. I expect that one will be as well. Sydney Gold Coast, battle of two teams that are trying to push even further up the ladder. Obviously, Sydney had a bad year last year. I think that could be a good game. And Hawthorn Bulldogs, maybe 2 of the better Victorian teams this season going into the year. We'll see how that shapes up, but I've got that one as well. Round 6, Collingwood Carlton is always much must-watch football. And then you've got the Battle of the Bridge, Sydney GWS, on as well. Hawthorn Port Adelaide, typically a spicy little matchup. Will it still be? We know Ken Hinkley. My guess is it always will be while Zach Butters is there. But yeah, Hawthorn Port Adelaide could be a fire little matchup to check out. And then we got the Western Derby of West Coast v Fremantle. I mean, yeah, one team's up, one team's down at the moment. Will that be the case by round 6? We'll see. But that matchup's always spicy, always worth watching. Round 7, we have Bulldogs Sydney. They play some good matchups against each other. In Victoria, should be a pretty even contest. Hawthorn Gold Coast, two teams that have played some close games over the last couple of years. I think that one might be down in Tassie, maybe. I could be completely wrong there. No, it definitely is. That's yes, that is Anzac Day. Anzac Day football. Hawthorn Gold Coast, I think, will be a bit of a good match. Hawthorn typically play very good down in Tassie, though, so maybe they should be too strong. Essendon Collingwood, Anzac Day fixture. Always got to check that one out. Round 8, we get the showdown, Adelaide Port Adelaide. Port Adelaide will want revenge after what they dished up last year in the second showdown, so keep your eye on that one. Essendon Brisbane. If Sammy Draper's fit and firing, it'll be his first game against his old club, so we'll check that one out. And for the same reason, same weekend, Carlton St Kilda, De Koning, Silvani, going up against their old mob in the Blues. you'd think Carlton will be wanting to show them who's boss in that game. We'll see how that plays out. Gold Coast GWS Expansion Cup, that maybe we won't be able to call Expansion Cup for too much longer, but we've got Gold Coast GWS that round as well. I think that's a pretty exciting round. Round 8. Round 9, Geelong Collingwood. They played an absolute thriller last year at the MCG around about the same time of the year. Obviously, quite a bit of history between those two teams as well over the last 15 years or so. So we'll check that one out. Round 10, Brisbane Geelong, grand final rematch. Obviously, up in Brisbane, this one. Always a good matchup. They haven't had that many close games over recent years, but both teams do get a pretty decent win-loss record out of it. Round 11, we kick off down in Tassie. Hawthorn Adelaide. They played a thriller down there last year. I think it was a 3-point game. So we'll check that one out. And then Friday night, we've got the Dreamtime at the G. Richmond Essendon. Always worth checking that one out as well. Hopefully both teams are hoping to be up-and-coming teams over this year and next year. So maybe some exciting talent. Obviously, those two teams did play probably the worst game of last season against each other. It was a horrible game to watch late last year. So hopefully we don't get a reenactment of that. Round 12, St Kilda Hawthorn. Two teams that we've mentioned Hawthorn a couple times, have top 4 aspirations. St Kilda absolutely have finals aspirations. They want to move up the ladder, so that will be an important game. And then Melbourne GWS, Clayton Oliver going up against his old boys. We'll see how that one plays out. But certainly could be worth watching. Round 13, we jump into Hawks and Dogs. Hawks probably have the wood over the Bulldogs over the last year or two, but should be good football. And then Gold Coast Brisbane, Q Clash. I'm going to wait all the way till round 13 for the Q Clash there. Should be a great game though, hopefully. They tend to play, especially the ones on the Gold Coast, tend to be pretty good. Essendon Carlton, two rivals going at it on on Sunday night. And should be good watching. Collingwood Melbourne, even though especially like the last couple years, Collingwood, or last year especially, Collingwood ended up top 4, Melbourne ended up missing finals by quite a bit, yet they met twice last year and both games were within a kick, I believe. So typically a matchup that there's a bit of feeling in, but also the result ends up being quite close, even though they're not always that close on paper. So check that one out, that should be good. Round 15, Gold Coast Hawthorn. As we mentioned, I think they play Anzac Day down Hawthorn home game. This one, the reverse matchup, Gold Coast home game, should be good. St Kilda Bulldogs should be good viewing as well. From here, we don't know the exact days because the fixture hasn't been exactly released, but Brisbane Sydney, as we mentioned before, they met a couple years ago in a grand final. Always good matchups. Port Adelaide, always got to check out a showdown as long as it's not that second showdown from last year. Round 17 is the grand final rematch part 2, Geelong v Brisbane. You got to check that one out. Gold Coast have had the wood over Collingwood the last couple years, winning a couple close-ish games. Round 17 will be good to check that one out again, see how that plays out. Who's going to win that one? Round 18, Adelaide Gold Coast. They played a ripper last year up on the Gold Coast. We'll check out how that matchup goes. Fremantle Sydney. Both teams trying to push up towards top 4 potentially at this time of the year. On paper, looks a good matchup. Collingwood Carlton. Always got to check that out. Round 19. And also round 19, you got Gold Coast Bulldogs. Bulldogs last year struggled against teams that played finals. Can they turn that around this year? We'll check it out. We'll hopefully have a good match there. Obviously, Jamara potentially going up against his old mob, depending on fitness and form and whatnot. But we'll see that one. Sydney, Adelaide, two teams, two interstate teams, if you're a Victorian, that maybe some people don't watch enough of. That should be a good matchup, though. Go check that one out. Round 20, we're into the business end of the season now. First up, we got the Battle of the Bridge Part 2, Giants Sydney. Sydney probably on paper. Maybe. Depends what the injury circumstances are for Giants by that time. Hawthorn Essendon. Hopefully we get a bit more spice back to the good old days of the Hawthorn Essendon rivalry. Then we get the Adelaide Collingwood game. Collingwood went over Adelaide twice late last year, and there was spice in both of them. Obviously, the Rankin situation, but a few other reasons as well. So we'll see how that goes late in the season, but that could be a spicy affair. And speaking of spicy affairs, the Western Derby, Fremantle West Coast. Hopefully, West Coast have put up a decent season to this point and can put up a big fight in that one. Round 21, we got Collingwood Geelong and St Kilda Sydney, which will be an interesting little battle there. Obviously, those two teams did meet in the finals a couple years ago. Round 22, we got Brisbane Hawthorn, two teams that met late last year, and Brisbane got over the line to cement top 4 spot. Hawthorn dropped out of the top 4 because of that. If they had won, they would have been top 4. So they'll be going at it late in the season again this year. St Kilda Carlton, for obvious reasons we mentioned before, the first time that a couple ex-Carlton players will be playing against their old team. Round 22, they do it again, so that will be interesting. And GWS versus Gold Coast, two teams that both have finals aspirations, Gold Coast especially, so we'll see how that plays out. Round 23, we head for the second Q clash, Brisbane Gold Coast, this time in Brisbane. Check that one out. A lot of people have those two teams as the top 2 teams heading into this season, so we'll see how that plays. Hawthorn Collingwood. Hawthorn typically have had a really good record against Collingwood over the last 3 or 4 years. So, we'll see how that plays. But both teams potentially will have an important matchup there. Fremantle Adelaide. The reverse of, I think we did the Fremantle Adelaide game earlier. Adelaide Fremantle. Either way, always a good matchup. Round 24, the final round, we got a prelim final rematch in Collingwood v Brisbane at the MCG. I think it's at the MCG, unless it's at Marvel, but I reckon it's at the MCG. So a little rematch of last year's prelim, which Brisbane obviously got over the line in. Carlton v Fremantle. Maybe a little bit of a surprise one to put on here, but I just get the feeling that this could be another really season-defining match in the final round. Both these teams over the last couple of years, Fremantle both years, and then Carlton 2 years ago, and the year before that, have had really important games in the last round that affect who plays finals and who doesn't. Obviously, Fremantle beating Bulldogs last year. The year before, Carlton lost to St Kilda, which would have knocked them out of the finals if Fremantle had beat Port, but Fremantle did not beat Port. So they're two teams that have had very interesting round 24s over the last couple of years. So they're matched up against each other this time. Maybe it will happen again. And then St Kilda Gold Coast is the next one, and Adelaide Giants to round out that final round. Both teams potentially fighting for a spot in top 4 or top 8, or who knows. But that's about 50 odd games that I think are worth watching this year. The must-watch games. Let me know your thoughts. Are there any key matchups that I missed? I don't know. You'd have to do the numbers on exactly who shows up the most. I tried to spread it around the competition as much as possible. Obviously, teams like West Coast are only there a couple times. Richmond's probably only there a couple times. There's not many Bombers, but obviously Brisbane's probably the most. They're the back-to-back premiership team. They're going to be hard to beat again. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on them. The other games that, I'll watch every game. I do watch every game multiple times, but they're the ones that I would be pointing towards. The other ones on the calendar that I am excited for the most, I guess you could say. Jumping into the A graders, this is probably where the controversy comes in. This is where people will have opinions. Feel free to let them be voiced in the comments. I read them all. Don't always agree, but that's part of football. Everyone has different opinions, but yeah, let me know your thoughts. This is how they shape up basically on my rating system that we do here at All Aussie Rules. If you're new here, we do ratings for every single game, for every single player. This spreads it around most positions on the field. So, for example, there are 4 ruckmen here. There are similar amount of inside mids as there are for the other positions. So if your favourite midfielder's not there, it's not a big dig at the midfielder. Really, it's just more the fact that there's only so much room. I think it's exactly 50 players I've got here as A graders heading into 2026. A couple of them won't be playing. Nick Martin and Tom Green, for example. I still left them on the list because they were A graders last season, so that's where they're staying for at least today. But yeah, we'll go through them club by club. Let me know your thoughts. Anyone I put in that you wouldn't, anyone that you think missed out, feel free to let me know. I am happy to see them, and maybe they'll be in next week's comments of the week section, which will wrap up this episode with comments of the week. Adelaide, Josh Worrell, I think, is one of the best up-and-coming key defenders in the competition. He is a star and hopefully continues to improve. And he could well be an All-Australian this year. Josh Rochelle, as that general forward, is an elite player. If he's getting more midfield time this year, maybe he's won't be in the A-grader list this year, but we'll see how that plays out. Obviously, it's tougher to get into their elite or A-grade range as a midfielder than anywhere else. Riley Thilthorpe is clearly one of the best, probably 3 or 4 key forwards in the competition. What he can do. Jordan Dawson, coming off a best season last year, was fantastic. Absolutely deserves that A-grader status. So 4 Crows, sorry. Don't know why I said Hawks. 4 Crows in the A-grader list, coming off their minor premiership last year. Brisbane, back-to-back premiership team. No surprise that there's plenty of A-graders on this list, and it could be more, let's be honest. Dane Zorko, Harris Andrews, Cam Rayner, Zach Bailey, Jared Berry, and Hugh McCluggage. Zach Bailey and Jared Berry, both as outside midfielders, whereas the rest, so that does kind of help them. But you could chuck in Will Ashcroft, you could chuck in Lachie Neale, you could chuck in Josh Dunkley, all from the midfield. You can also chuck in Darcy Wilmot, and yeah, the list goes on. They're a great team that just work really well together. So we've limited it to 6 here, but all fantastic players. And the best thing about this spread is the variety of positions. You got your general defender, you got your key defender in Harris Andrews. His final series was outstanding, as was Zorko's, to be honest. Cam Rayner is that general forward, and then Zach Bailey, Berry, both outside mids. Hugh McCluggage is an inside mid. They're just across the board really good. I would expect Will Ashcroft probably breaks into this list heading in by the end of the year, maybe. We'll see. We might update this as we go through the season a couple times. I don't have a distinct plan for it, but I reckon we'll upgrade this list as we go. Maybe every 3 or 4 weeks, maybe. We'll see. Carlton, Harry Mackay, Paddy Cripps. A lot of people probably disagree with Harry Mackay. His numbers are still really good. I think he averaged over 2.5 goals a game last season. Didn't play enough football, but we'll keep an eye on him. Paddy Cripps, also coming off a down year, but from what we've seen from him before that, he's absolutely still an A-grader if he can get back towards that level. Collingwood, 2 players. They're 1 and 2 in the best and fairest last year. Nick Dacos, obviously everyone knows the achievements of Nick Dacos. He's a star midfielder. Darcy Cameron was the number 4 ranked ruckman in our system last year. I went with 4 ruckmen on this list. I think he had an exceptional year last year. Obviously this year, we'll see how the new ruck rules go. Could really shake up this list immensely. We'll see, but yeah, really good year from him last year. Bombers, just the one with Nick Martin, obviously going to be out for the season. As a general forward last year, he was outstanding. His numbers were great. He does go through midfield at times. Zach Merritt's probably the unlucky one here for the Bombers, but at his best, he probably makes this list. But as I said, there are a lot of good midfielders in the competition. Right now, I don't have him in the top 10 inside midfielders in the competition, but that's not to say that he's not capable of being in the top 10. Fremantle coming off a fantastic season. They're still a young team that's going to keep getting better, and I think there's quite a few potential players to come onto this list. At the moment, we've got Jordan Clark as that running defender, and then Brayshaw and Caleb Sarong as your inside mids. But there's plenty of room for other players. So Luke Jackson in the ruck is absolutely capable. I think he was number 5 in our ranking system last year, so not much improvement to get into this list. Last year, also Hayden Young missed a lot of football. He's probably borderline about getting onto this list. Start of last season, I probably would have had him right on that cusp. Obviously, we didn't see much of him last year, but if he can be fit and healthy, their forward line, Josh Tracy, obviously the big one there. Chuck in rising star winner Murphy Reed, chuck in Paddy Voss, had an outstanding year last year. So I can certainly see there being at least 5 players by the end of this season from Fremantle on this list. Geelong, Tom Stewart as your defender, and then Brian Myers, Sean Manor, and Jeremy Cameron as forwards, as well as Maxi Holmes. No Bailey Smith. Another season like last year probably moves him close. He's probably the first midfielder not on this list, maybe. He's very close to if he's not. I think he's capable. His ball use last year maybe let him down a little bit in my eyes, but he's certainly close to this list of 50-odd players. Gold Coast, their 2 midfielders were outstanding. Matt Rao, obviously Brownlow medalist. Noah Anderson, the captain, fantastic season last year. They have a lot of other players that are very close as well. Christian Petrarca, King, a couple forwards, Ben Long. Chuck in their defence. They've got some really good players down there as well, Sam Collins and the like. So keep an eye on Gold Coast. They're definitely a team that could have another 3 or 4 that go onto this list as well. The Giants, I've got Lockie Ash just ahead of Lockie Whitfield. Both could have arguably been on this list. I've gone with just Lockie Ash, obviously coming off his best on-ground performance in Origin a couple of weeks ago. Sam Taylor, I still have rated as the best key defender in the competition, so he's right up there and definitely an A-grader. Toby Green is still probably the best at what he does in the competition, even though he is getting on. We're going to see probably a fair bit of midfield Toby Green this year, which will be interesting to see how that works out. Just due to some injuries, certainly early season. Jesse Hogan, 2 years ago, was Coleman medalist. Best one-on-one marking forward in the competition, in my opinion. Contested marking forward. So we'll see how he goes. Last year wasn't as fantastic as the year before, but still, very, very handy player to have in your forward line. Tom Green, obviously out for the season, so by a few weeks' time, he will be off this list. But for now, we're leaving him there. Hawthorn, another team that have a lot of role players that all play exceptionally well and good football. We're limiting it to 3 here, just because that's where we're at with Hawthorn at the moment. Will Day's close, but we haven't seen enough consistency from him in terms of playing. He's had a lot of injuries over the last couple of years. Couple other defenders and forwards are all right on that list, but we've got James Sicily. Can play a variety of roles really good. Dylan Moore, last year, not quite to the standards of 2024, but he is still one of the best at what he does in the game. And Jack Gunston had a career best year last year as a key forward. He was absolutely outstanding. Will we see that many goals from him again this year? I doubt it, but he's on last year's form, clearly an A-grader. Melbourne, they've got the best ruckman in the competition, Max Gawn. There's no doubt about it. He's the best. He has been the best for the last 3 or 4 years as a ruckman, so he's definitely on this list. And Pickett, a bit more pressure on him this year, so I think this will warrant his selection in this lineup. Obviously, no Petrarca, no Oliver in this midfield. They do have Jack Steele added in, but I think there's going to be a bit more pressure on him to carry a bit more load and get a bit more performance out of himself. And if that is what happens, he will clearly be an A-grader for the rest of the year. Paul Curtis, as a medium-sized forward, was fantastic last year. He will be All-Australian this year if he puts together another season like that, I think. Tristan Cherry was ranked number 3 as the ruckman last year. Really good at what he does. Once again, though, ruck rules are changing. We'll see if that has much effect. Port Adelaide, Zach Butters is one of, if not my favourite player right now in the AFL. I can't wait to see him run around this year. It's going to be interesting to see where he plays in 2027. But for what he does, absolutely on this list. Nick Loston, good general defender last year. Probably career best year in my opinion. He was really good. Maybe lacking support. I don't know if he'll still be on this list at the end of this year, but from last year he was. St Kilda, Jack Sinclair, Callum Wilkie, a couple defenders, and Nashaya Wanganeen-Malira obviously started the year as the general defender last year and turned into one of the best midfielders in the game. Absolutely deserves to be on this list. Sydney, they have an abundance of players. Brodie Grundy just misses out on this list. Nick Blakey is one of the best run and dash players in the competition. Errol Goulden is the best wingman in the game, but they also chuck him in the inside mid at times. Isaac Heaney, his last 2 years have been fantastic and absolutely on this list. Chad Warner, his numbers weren't quite good enough last year. After the year before they were, so he's right on that cusp as well. No one from West Coast. Not to say that they can't be by the end of this season, but we need to see a fairly big improvement from West Coast players to get on this list, I reckon. Bulldogs, they have an abundance of top-end talent as well. Bailey Dale, he had 48 touches in the game last year one day. Sam Darcy, one of the best key forwards in the competition. Expect to see that again from him. Marcus Bontempelli has been our highest-rated player 3 seasons in a row, so we fully... he 100% deserves to be on this list. He is probably the A-plus player on this list, him and Max Gawn. Ed Richards really stepped up the last 18 months. He was fantastic this year, or last year, sorry. And Tim English, maybe the surprise packet on the list. I don't know yet what his role will look like this year with obviously the ruck rule changes. He is a very good tap ruckman. He's a very good score involvement player though. Whereas some of the other ruckmen don't hit the scoreboard quite as much as Timmy English. He does have massive games of score involvements. It's helped by this midfield and this Bulldogs team that scores quite highly, but that's what he does best. Whereas someone like Darcy Cameron's more your behind the play, intercept marking ruckman. Tristan Cherry's more your tackling, that sort of ruckman. Max Gawn just your all-around sort of ruckman. So all completely different ruckmen in this list, but all deserve to be there in my opinion. So that's the top 50. That's the A graders. As I said, I might try and continue to update this throughout the season. We might put it in an episode every few weeks or so, and just keep abreast of where we sit with A graders in 2026. We'll go to comments of the week. Most of these, actually all of these, are potentially off the same video. The West Coast Eagles 2026 season review has had quite a lot of traction and quite a lot of comments over the last few days. Thanks to Paul. Good video. Apparently, I appreciate that. Brett tells us it's been hard to be a member, and that is very justified, I think. It's been a rough few years for the Eagles, but there's light at the end of the tunnel, and at the end of the day, they did get a premiership at least in 2018. Better than some other teams like North Melbourne, who have been down for quite a few years now and don't at least have that success from any time in recent memory. I'm not going to even try and say that name, G-N-O-W-O-P, Genop. I did end up trying to say it. He's saying top 10 for the Eagles. Big call. We'll see how that plays out. I think it's a stretch to see the Eagles going from one win last year up to top 10 this year. But strange things happen. And then a couple people with suggestions on my best 23 for the Eagles. And I overall kind of agree. How in for Cole, CDT in over J Will, which I think I did say in the video, I agree with. And I just, when I made the best 23, we hadn't seen CDT in at the top level yet, not even in practice games and stuff. So I was staying with Jack Williams at that point, but I said CDT certainly would be in the best 23 by the end of the year. Hamish Davis likely takes the wing spot from Marriage. We'll see how that plays. And yeah, Paul's got a couple suggestions there as well, which I'm certainly not against. As I said in the video, I'm happy to hear all thoughts. I agree with most of them, to be honest. It's quite hard doing best 23s for every team, especially when I did them like 6-7 weeks ago. That wasn't even meant to say 6-7, but hey, yeah, did them 6 weeks ago, and obviously then the videos for the West Coast Eagles only went out like 2 days ago. So there's a big time there that a lot of things have changed, but I'm still reasonably happy with all my best 23s, how I did them and where they sit. Yeah, there's been a few changes across the board for all the teams really, but overall I think they did pretty well this year. I think better than last year in my opinion. So yeah, comments of the week, there they are. We do them once a week, comments of the week, so make sure you comment on all my videos. Give me all your thoughts. As I said throughout this video, I want to hear what game you're most looking forward to. Let me know if there's any A graders I missed. Not just YouTube, not just Spotify, not just Apple Podcasts, anywhere you leave a comment, TikTok, Instagram, all of those, I will read them and potentially put them on here for us to discuss in a little bit more depth. So I appreciate everyone that does comment. I appreciate everyone that likes. I appreciate you all for following along on this journey. Footy season is so close, and we're all pretty excited here right now. So that's pretty much it. As I said, don't forget to go to all the social medias and give us a follow. All Aussie Rules everywhere will find us. Just look for that logo. This was the 2026 season preview. We've got a lot of hopes and plans for this season, especially with our previews and reviews of games. You'll get a sneak peek of that on next week's episode of our pre-season review games on what that will look like this season. So stay tuned, check that out. But yeah, we're going to be all systems go. Podcast twice a week, Mondays and Thursday, all the way through the rest of 2026 until pretty much end of November. There's basically 2 episodes every week, which is crazy to think. That's a lot of episodes, but yeah, it will all be there. We'll be doing other content on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. Go check it all out. I don't have much else to say. I appreciate you for being here. I'm John. This was another episode of the All Aussie Rules Football Podcast. Don't forget to hit that follow or subscribe button. If you haven't already, I appreciate you for being here, and I will catch you on the next one.